this is going to be just an overview of the rules of handicapping and the World Handicap System. Should give you a pretty good base knowledge of how handicapping works, how handicap indexes are calculated, and how they're used. Um, like I said, we have a small crowd, so you can hit the chat with questions, but with a small crowd, feel free to unmute yourself and we can ask questions verbally. That makes it easier. We're in the member services department. I'm fall under that. The handicapping kind of falls under the member services. Kevin Harris is our director, and Anna Catherine Herring is a relatively new hire. She's fitting in fantastic here as a member services associate. So if you need any support for gin or for handicapping, any one of us will be able to help. So hopefully we'll get done in about 45 minutes or so, plus or minus with questions. All right, so I'm kind of following along with the USGA's got a little player reference guide that kind of has a nice overview, and I've worked that to my advantage here for this presentation. So, what's the purpose of the World Handicap System? It's to provide the purpose. I'm sorry, excuse me. The purpose of the World Handicap System is to provide greater enjoyment for all who play the game by enabling players of any ability from anywhere in the world to play and compete with others on a fair basis. And there is a maximum handicap index in the World Handicap System of 54.0. For those who may not know, back in 2020, the USGA got together with the Royal and Ancient, the R&A, to kind of uh, put the highlights of each system together, and I think they used a couple other ideas from other national associations and put everybody's favorite ideas into this World Handicap System that we have now. So the RNAs had to adopt some things, like they've had to adopt casual rounds getting posted for handicap purposes. That was something they didn't do before, and we took some things from them as well. So that's where we're at here with the World Handicap System. A little brief history there. But what is a handicap index? A handicap index provides you with a portable measurement of your playing ability that is measured consistent with how golfers are measured worldwide. So it's a measurement of your playing ability. And as we'll learn later, it's a measurement of your playing ability really when you're playing well. It can be used to track your progress and play a casual or competitive round with other players. And all players are encouraged to establish and maintain a handicap index. You might need it to play in that member guest. You might need it to it's helpful. It's fun to have it to keep track of how your progress is coming. Is your handicap index getting better? Uh, Lots of people like to go play golf in Scotland. You need to have a handicap index to do that. So if you have friends that don't have one, or they might say, "Hey, I'm not a serious golfer," that's okay. You still encouraged to get a handicap index. All right, so often I'm gonna kind of my Bible here is the rules of handicapping. So I'm gonna pull some things from there that I'll talk to here and there. Um, Players have responsibilities. So the USGA has responsibilities. The Carolinas Golf Association has responsibilities. This is one of them, education. That's a responsibility. Your club's handicap committee, if you're a member at a club, they have responsibilities too, education as well. But players have responsibilities. A player is expected to act with integrity by following the rules of handicapping and refrain from using or circumventing the rules of handicapping for the purpose of gaining an unfair advantage. Players are expected to submit acceptable scores for handicap purposes as soon as possible after the round is completed and before midnight local time. And we'll learn about acceptable scores here pretty soon. Uh, Golfers are expected to make the best possible score on each hole. Play by the rules of golf, fairly clear there. And finally, conduct peer review, and we'll learn about that. But basically, that's making sure your playing partners posted their score. It's kind of the simple version of that. So our handicap index, which we'll learn all about this afternoon, is the portable number you take with you, but it's not the number you actually use on the golf course. You bring it to the golf course, but you're not actually going to use it on the golf course. So the number we're going to use on the golf course is our course handicap. So we're going to find our course handicap. Um, Once you decide which tees you're going to play, it's time to convert your handicap index into a course handicap, which is the number of strokes you need to play the par. Um, you already might notice there's lots of terminology that I'm going to throw at you. Handicap index, course handicap, tons of terminology. That's part of the confusion that people conflate things and call things just a handicap and I hear playing index. So part of my efforts here are to try to get the proper terms out there, which can help make it clear when talking to other people, when all talking to pros, using the right terms. And so encourage your playing partners to learn the correct terms. So we're going to convert our handicap index, which is that number you see when you log into the app, into a course handicap. And again, the course handicap is the number of strokes you need to play to par. You can use your mobile app to define your course handicap by looking up the course and selecting the tees you're going to play. If you happen to be playing a 9-hole round, your 9-hole course handicap is determined by using half of that handicap index, which is rounded off to the nearest tenth, along with the 9-hole course rating and slope rating and 9-hole par of the tees being played. That'll be a little clearer here in a minute. So we're going to set our target score. Our target score, which is an unofficial term, is the score needed to play to your handicap. Since your course handicap changes from each set of tees, so does your target score. So very simply put, your target score is your par plus the course handicap. So here's an example of a player with a handicap index of 15. So what these are numbers, the course slope rating for those who don't know, they're measurements of the difficulty of the golf course. So the lower the number, the easier the golf course, the higher the numbers, the more difficult the golf course. And mostly has to do with length. There's some other factors about with obstacles, trees, water, out of bounds, so on and so forth. But the more difficult the course, the higher the course and slope rating are going to be, and therefore the higher your course handicap is going to be, and then higher your target score will be. So, for example, this golfer with an handicap index of 15.0, let's say he's going to play the white tees. Course rating 70.0, slope rating's 125, the par is 70, and we don't need to worry about how that's calculated. I think I talk about that in a minute, but that's you don't really need to know. But that gives that golfer a course handicap of 17 and their target score of 87. So if they shoot at 87, they'll have played to the par based on their course handicap. Yep. And so when you play a more difficult set of tees, you'll be expected to shoot a higher score. So that's your course handicap. If you're playing a casual, non-competitive round, your course handicap becomes your playing handicap. And those numbers are often the same. But if you're in an event, if you're in a tournament, if you're in a play day, if you're in some sort of competition, that course handicap might be a little different from your what we call playing handicap. Course playing handicaps take into account a handicap allowance. So, for example, you might be in a two-person team event playing what they call a four ball here. A four ball stroke play is an event where you and your partner, you and one partner, each play the hole, and the best score is the one that counts. So when you're playing an event like that, you don't need to use if everybody uses their full handicap, your full course handicap, it would skew things toward the higher handicappers. So we're going to use a handicap allowance to kind of bring the field a little closer together. So for example, for that four ball event, which is I call it a two-person best ball, the allowance is 85%. So a player could have a course handicap of 17, but a playing handicap of 14. What I like to say, the course handicap is you against the course. Your playing handicap is you against the other competitors that you're competing against, whether it's just one other player or a whole field of 80 players. Course handicap, you against the course. Playing handicap, you against the field. All right, so what do we do with these playing handicap values? We're going to compare those values. We're going to compare your playing handicap to the values from the stroke index row on the scorecard. Most scorecards still don't print stroke index on the card. They'll print the word handicap. And handicap holes are the old term. Stroke indexes are the new term. Handicap holes have been around forever. I think I even said handicap holes the other day. I haven't been in this business over 30 years. But they recently changed the term to stroke index, but people call it handicap. It's listed as handicap on the scorecard, and that's okay. In any case, I try to use stroke index because it kind of using that word handicap kind of is another can be confusing because handicap's such a broad, it's playing handicap, course handicap, handicap index. All right. So in this example, let's just look right at the example. The player has a playing handicap of 10. So that means the player is going to get 10 shots, so that means they'll get one handicap stroke on all holes allocated 1 through 10. So we see our stroke indexes, and we have, this is pretty common, all the odds on the front, all the evens on the back. So any hole with it's a 10 or below, that golfer is going to get a stroke on. So if they're playing it in a tournament, um, and they shoot a 5, they're going to get a net score of 4 for that hole. Um, know your maximum hole score. And we'll go back to we'll be revisiting playing handicaps and course handicaps and strokes as well later on. But knowing your maximum hole score. So if you happen to struggle on a hole during a casual round, you actually don't have to finish it. The maximum hole score for handicap purposes is net double bogey. So feel free to pick up once you have reached that limit to keep up a good pace of play. Now, if you're in a tournament, some tournaments have a maximum hole score. Oftentimes they don't, so you do have to finish your round or finish your hole. But what is net double bogey? It's double bogey. If it's a par is 4, a double bogey is a 6, plus any handicap strokes you're going to receive. So that's your maximum score for a hole for handicap purposes. An example here, John Smith has a course handicap of 16. We're using the course handicap here, not if there's a lower playing handicap, we're not using that. We're using the full course handicap. This means that he receives 1 handicap stroke on holes allocated 1 through 16 of the stroke index or handicap row of the scorecard. So he's got 16 shots. So he gets 1 shot on every hole except the 17th and 18th stroke index holes, which are number 7 here and number 10. So on the 17th hole, where he receives a stroke, he gets a gross score of 9. So he hits 2 balls in the water or 3 putts, something like that. He gets a 9. That score is going to get reduced to a 7 for handicap purposes. As a result, his gross score of 88 is reduced to what we call an adjusted gross score of 86 for handicap purposes. So again, par is 4 plus 2 strokes for the double bogey plus the strokes received is 7. That's your maximum. So you have to do this on your own if you post your scores using the total score method. If you post your scores hole by hole, which I really push people to do because it's easier and it's got a lot of benefits as well. If you post your score hole by hole, it will handle this automatically. You can enter in your actual score. The system will figure out your maximum hole score for handicap purposes. It's so easy. So I love posting hole by hole. Love it when people do so. Um, Revisiting rules of handicapping. So they're all broken down in the rules 1, 2, 3 through 7. Hole not completed. So why would you not finish a hole? So there's various circumstances that might result in a player starting a hole but not holing out. Usually not the case in a casual round. The only example there is if you hit that maximum hole score in that double bogey. But if you're playing in an event, you may not need to finish the hole. And why wouldn't you do that? Well, the result of the hole has been decided. A hole has been conceded in match play. So if you're in a match play event, you against an opponent or your team against an opponent, you might say, all right, your opponent's already in with a score that you can't beat, and they'll or you'll concede the golfer your opponent a putt, or they concede a putt to you, or they concede the hole to you since they've got a bad score going, and you're on the green with a 2 putt, and they can't do any better than you'll be able to do. When a hole is conceded, the hole is done. You can pick up your ball. Or your partners has already posted a better score. So your partner's in the hole with a 5, and you've got a 8-foot putt for a 5. You can pick up because it's not going to make any difference. We can say that hole's done. So you didn't finish the hole, but we do need to post that have a number for handicap purposes. So if you do not hole out on a hole prior to reaching that net double bogey, you should record what we call most likely score. And we use these following guidelines to compute net most likely score. So when a hole is started but not completed, the score recorded for handicap purposes is their most likely score. So that's the number of strokes you've already taken, plus the strokes you'd most likely require to complete the hole, plus any penalty strokes. So the what what's this? The number of strokes you would most likely require. Well, it's really what it is. How many strokes would you probably take to get in the hole? but we have some specific guidelines laid out in the rules of handicapping. So if you're on the green and you have a 5 foot putt, you're just going to add 1 to your score for handicap purposes. Yeah, I myself are probably 50-50 from 5 feet, but if the hole's done and I got a 5 footer, I'm just adding 1 to my score. Outside of 5 feet, but within say 20 yards, we're going to add 2 or 3, depending on the position of the ball, difficulty of the green, and the ability of the player. So, if you're just off the green and have a fairly straightforward chip, just add 2. But if you're in a deep bunker and it's a tiered green and a tricky shot, maybe add 3. And then less commonly, but if you're outside of 20 yards, add 3 or 4. Again, depending on where your ball is, how far away you are, your ability, that sort of thing. All right, so we're rolling along here pretty good. A little pause to catch our breath and ask any questions if you'd like. Obviously, if you think of questions later on that apply to this first section, feel free to ask later on. That's fine. No problem at all. You can do chat or you can unmute yourself. All right, let's get right on to it. Acceptable scores that I mentioned earlier. A score is acceptable for handicap purposes if the round is played. So here's our requirements for an acceptable score. Has to be in an authorized format of play. Stroke play is fine. Match play is fine. Scrambles are not a case where you wouldn't post your score. Um, in the company of at least one other person. So you can't play by yourself and post that score for handicap purposes. Of note, the other person doesn't necessarily have to be playing golf, but they do have to be somebody who can attest your round. Yeah, so they can say, yes, this person shot an 85 that day. So, if you got your baby in a carriage, that wouldn't qualify. Play by the rules of golf, of course. On a golf course with a current rating and slope rating. So, um, golf courses are required to get re-rated every 10 years. Most courses in the Carolinas are rated, but some are not. So if they've fallen out of that expiration period, 10-year period, and they don't have current course ratings, we can't post our scores there. Um, During an active season. So not an issue here in the Carolinas. We're a year-round association, but some northern courses have active seasons. I think Maryland and above is pretty much our guideline. So Maryland's active season runs from like March 15th to November 15th. So if you happen to be up in Baltimore in late December, but it's a nice day and you play golf, you wouldn't be able to post that score. Let me I'll have a question here in a second, but let me finish acceptable and unacceptable scores. So unacceptable scores, if you're getting a lesson out on a golf course, can't post that score. Um, if you have a competition where you're playing, example here, 3 clubs and a putter, where the number or type of clubs is restricted, that score can't be posted. Again, score can't be verified by another person playing by yourself. Not playing the required number of holes. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but basically the minimum number is 9 to be able to post a score. And then when the player doesn't play their own ball, scrambles, alternate shot. And revisiting expired or courses whose ratings have expired. So if you're on the mobile app and you look for a club and you can't find that course, the system will say, click here to manually post that score. I do not pretty much do not post a manual score without checking with me or someone. Because if you can't find that course in the system, it's 99 times out of 100, if not more than that, the course does not have valid course ratings for posting scores. So if it's not in the system, you can't post a score. I know often courses will have the course and slope rating on the scorecards, and you may want to look at that and say, okay, I can use that, but you can't. The ratings in the system are the ones that should be used. Especially even if you have the case where the ratings in the system differ from the card, go with the ratings in the system. Again, courses are required by the USGA to be re-rated every 10 years. Yeah, using the manual post option is not recommended as ratings printed on the scorecards can often be inaccurate. All right. Let me get to this question. How to adjust handicap if player A has a higher course rating and slope than opponent B, male versus female in particular? That's all handled um, in that calculation of the course handicap. Um, so if player A is playing a higher course and slope rating than player B, they're going to have a higher course handicap than player B will, and it's all handled automatically through that. So player A is going to have, let's say they both player A and player B have the same handicap index, so say 10. Um, Player A plays a higher course slope rating, they might have a course handicap of 12. Player B is playing a slightly easier course and slope rating, and they may have a course handicap of 9. So player A is going to get 12 strokes. Player B is going to get 9. If they're playing against each other, then um, player B plays 0, gets 0, and player A gets the difference. 12 minus 9 would get 3 strokes. Does that help you out? Okay, very good. Um, excuse me. Visiting. Yeah, and so talking about active courses, there's almost 800 active courses here in the Carolinas. For those who don't know, the Carolinas Golf Association does cover North and South Carolina. Um, Concurrently. We're kind of a little unique in the nation. The Golf Association of Philadelphia covers parts of Pennsylvania, parts of New Jersey, parts of and all of Delaware now, but Carolina's CGA is a little unique. There's about 455 rated courses in North Carolina, and South Carolina has close to 345. Quite a large number. We're one of the bigger associations in the country. Post your score. So do not wait. Post your score as soon as possible after playing. You will be expected to post your score on the day you play because your handicap, yeah, there's a few reasons. Your handicap index will be updated overnight. We want to keep things real time. And then your score is going to be included in the daily playing conditions calculation. And we'll talk about that in a second. Basically, the system will evaluate all the scores posted on that day of play and see if there's an adjustment that's required based on how well people played. Plus, your score is available for peer review by your fellow golfers. Um, Talking about this a little bit ago, not just post your score on the day of play, post your score using the hole by hole method. So I love it. It doesn't take long to do. I fire up the app and I kind of post scores as I play along, and I'll maybe not type in my score after every hole, but every 2 or 3 I'll go, okay, I went, 5, 5, 6, or my rounds, 6, 7, 5. Um, or if you have your scorecard at the end of the round, you can quickly go through it and knock it out. It only takes you 30 seconds. It really doesn't take much longer than posting total scores. Um, Again, it handles your maximum whole score rule automatically. It calculates statistics. You'll know it gives you your percentage of pars, your percentage of birdies, percentage of bogeys. Those are tabulated for you. It minimizes posting errors, so you don't have to come up to your club staff the next day and say, I made a mistake posting my score. And then your home club will have use for that data down the road. Maybe they can evaluate how easy or how difficult the hole is playing and post all the hole using either one of those two options. For those that are extra serious about tracking things, you can track your stats, missed greens, missed fairways, that sort of thing. A fairly new feature that you may or may not know about. I talked about minimizing errors, but if you do make an error, you can now delete your score until midnight on the same day that the score was posted. You can't fix a score, but you can delete it and then repost it properly via the gin.com website or the Gin mobile app. And so you can see this here when you're when we get as soon as you finish posting your score, you'll see this little thing that says, "Hey, made a mistake, delete a round." But if you notice it later, you can click into the details of your round, and you can see this little box here, or this little link here to be able to delete your round. Um, and then you'd have to repost it. And that's only available on that day of play until midnight. But if you don't notice it until the next day, contact your home club's handicap committee. Often the club staff can help you out as well to request the score correction. This ensures proper peer review. If any of you are a member of one of our e-clubs, um, you would contact us via this email, GASC, which stands for Golf Association Services of the Carolinas at carolinasgolf.org. Shoot us an email, we can get you squared away. All right, so we've got our score posted, so we're gonna let those calculations begin. So the first step I just mentioned is the playing conditions calculation, PCC, and that takes place automatically behind the scenes to determine whether scores made at the course met expectations. So if scores were significantly lower or higher than expected, a PCC adjustment, which is going to range from -1 to +3, will be applied to that score differential calculation for all scores from that day. A negative adjustment means the course played easier. So the -1 means the course played easier. A positive adjustment means the course played more difficult. And a PCC of 0 means the course played as expected, which will be the case on most days. I don't usually see a +3. Sometimes a +2, see +1s and -1s quite a bit. And that's all done through analysis of the scores. It's not doesn't look at weather. Now, weather can be a factor in whether a PCC occurs. But uh, it only looks at the scores. As long as it looks at all scores posted on all tees, looks at male players, female players, as long as the golfers has an index of 36 or below, it looks at that score and sees if PCC should be applied. All right, so that leads us to a score differential. Here's another big term in the handicapping world. So once PCC is determined, your final score differential will be calculated and added to your scoring record. A score differential measures your performance for your round in relation to the difficulty of the course and tees being played. So that's really the value that I look at when looking at scores is that score differential. That's a measure of, it's your score with the course and slope applied, as well as any PCC that might take place. So yeah, you may have a score of 80 that was shot on a difficult course. That may be a better performance than a 77 on an easier one, and the score differential reflects this. So the golfer might have a lower score differential with an 80 than they did with a 77. It all depends on that rating and slope. So, and then for those who are curious, here's the calculation for the score differential. Actually, I like to jump to this side first. I like to take the score, subtract the course rating, then subtract any PCC adjustment for the playing conditions. Multiply that number by 113, which is what we call the standard slope, and then divide that by the slope rating of the course, and that gives us our score differential. And you can see that when you post your score. Yeah, you can see that when you post your score, and it's in your score details in your scoring record. Um, so we can kind of see this. We'll just run through a quick example of a calculation here. Adjusted gross score is 94. Remember, adjusted with the maximum whole score applied. Score, subtract the course rating, multiply by that 113, divide by 132. There's no PCC at this point. Score differential is 21.1. So you might post your score and might see your score differential at 21.1. But maybe the next day you might, PCC came about. So the score differential is going to change. We're going to do score minus the rating, multiply by 113, divide by 132. Score minus the rating, subtract the PCC, apply the slope, and our score differential is going to go down by not quite 2, in this case, 1.8. And that's our quick calculation of a score differential with and without PCC. All right, some changes. This was a change that started last year. So if you've played 9 holes, you've all noticed this. If you posted a 9-hole score, your 9-hole score is going to be converted into an 18-hole score differential for immediate use. So 18-hole courses all have a rating and slope, but each individual 9 also has a rating and slope. So a course might have a rating of 32, and a slope of 133. The nines might have a rating of say 37.5 and 34.5, and slopes of say 136 and 130. So each nine has its own uh, course and slope rating. So a score differential can be calculated with just a 9-hole round. Um, so anyway, um, the 18-hole score differential is determined by adding the 9-hole score differential produced from your round using those 9 holes rating and slopes. And then that's added to what we call an expected score differential over 9 holes on a course of standard difficulty. So we're going to take our 9-hole score differential. We're going to add our expected score differential to get an 18-hole score differential. And the expected score differential is just a neutral score. It's based on your handicap index. It's essentially an average score just to kind of fill in the gaps and get you an 18-hole score differential. Some notes: at least 9 holes must be played for a score to be acceptable for handicap purposes. Used to be able to play 7 or 8, but no more. Have to play all 9 holes. And again, the expected score for a player is based on the handicap index at the time the round is played. Uh, uh, a player with a handicap index of 10 is going to have a different and lower expected score than a player with a handicap index of 15. So let's look at an example of that real quick. Um, player A, I'll say player A and player B. Player A is pretty good here, 4.0. Player B is kind of an average player, 16.0. This golfer is going to have a lower expected score differential than this golfer. They both go out and play the front 9 silver tees here. Rating is 36, slope is 125. They both shoot a 42. That gives them a 9-hole score differential of 5.42. Player A is going to end up with an 18-hole score differential of 8.7. Player B is going to have an 18-hole score differential of 14.9. Same score, but different score differentials. Another change from last year, if you played between 10 and 17 holes, and I'm really a big fan of this change. This one's great. Um, uh, well, for those that didn't remember or have been around for a while, used to be with 9-hole scores, you would post a 9-hole score and it would get held on in your record and then combined with the next 9-hole score. So they wanted to get rid of that. That caused players would often get 2 low 9-hole scores plugged together and skew the golfer's handicap index, that kind of thing. All right, back to if you played 10 to 17 holes. So why would you play all 10 somewhere between 10 to 17 holes? Let's say you played 16 holes. Why would you do that? Well, you got rained out. Thunderstorm came in. Thunderstorm came in late yesterday afternoon around here in Moore County, as you know. That's a pretty common reason for not being able to finish your round. Any other number of reasons could happen. You someone got sick on the course, or they felt bad and had to leave. They had babysitter had to cancel and they had to go home and get their kids. Any number of reasons. So if you play between 10 and 17 holes, the score differential is going to be calculated for those holes played. The system's going to do a little calculation behind the scenes, and then it's going to add to it's going to use this expected score differential, but only for the number of holes remaining to create an 18-hole score differential. So for example, only 16 holes were completed before severe weather prevented you from finishing your round. System's going to calculate a score differential from the 16 holes for the 16 holes that were played, add the expected score differential for 2 holes, and it's not going to be an even number. It's not going to be like if we have 2 holes left, it's not going to be like 9. It's going to be like a 10.2 or something like that. But we don't know what it's going to be. And that's going to give us our 18-hole score differential. And of note, you are going to be required to post your score using the hole-by-hole option so that a score differential value can be determined for the holes played. The system really needs to know what holes were played, what holes were not played. But since we're posting hole-by-hole already, no big deal. So some screenshots from the mobile app. Again, we're going to choose our hole-by-hole or hole-by-hole with stats. We can choose this 10 to 17 hole option. So I'm pretty sure if you chose 18 holes, it works the same way. Really no difference. And in fact, I had a round last summer. I was posting the scores I was playing. We were on number 10, bottom dropped out. So I was able to finish 10 because I had a good chip and I wanted to take my par there. I had a good up and down, but I digress. And at when I was finished with that round, I went to post my score, and I got this alert that says, "Hey, you have not entered your score for every hole. If you post your score, you'll receive a 18 hole score differential, and we're going to want to hit post anyway, and and get that score posted." Yep, and here's my round that I had last summer, my round at Talamore. I had So if you've had a round like this in your record, you're familiar with it. So I had 49 strokes after 10 holes, and it used expected score to give me a full score differential of 15.5, and that's how that looks. So, yep, it kind of looks odd, um, but I can see that I played 10 holes here. Um, Question we have. Good timing here. If playing 9 holes, in order to post your score, is it mandatory you play either 1 through 9 or 10 through 18 on the scorecard, as opposed to playing 9 holes, example 6 to 14? I kind of glossed over that, but that is an important question. If you only play 9 holes, the system does require that you play a rated 9. So most cases, that's going to be either 1 through 9 or 10 through 18. Um, that's going to have it rated 9. So in most cases, if you played 6 through 14, you would not be able to post that score. Um, there are some courses where they might have an odd routing where maybe you start on one, you play 1, 2, 3, 4, but then you can make your way back to the clubhouse with, 15, 16, 17, 18, that kind of routing. And if there's a rate, we can make a rating for that. Some courses have a rating for those kind of like an inside 9, they'll often get called. If there's a routing like that that has a rating and it's 9 holes, that is fine as well. But playing 6 to 14 at this time, and maybe that'll change down the road. But yeah, if you played 6 through 14, wouldn't be able to post that score. That can happen during if you have a shotgun event and you get rained out partway through. So great question. But you have to play a rated 9 to be able to post that score. And if you tried to post 6 through 14 on the app, it would not let you. Great question. Thank you. All right. Moving on. This one doesn't happen a lot, and hopefully, and it's a kind of an odd case, but it does happen. If you have an exceptional round. So if the score results in a score differential, I mean, that's our score with the rating and slope applied and any PCC. If that score differential is 7.0 strokes or better than your handicap index at the time the round is played, an exceptional score reduction is going to be applied. And it's called, this is your net score differential. So if your score differential is between 7 and 9.9 strokes better, your handicaps index is going to get reduced by a stroke. And then if your score differential is 10 or more strokes better, your handicap index will be reduced by 2.0 strokes. So for example, a player with a handicap index of 20 submits a score that produces a score differential of 12.5. Since it is 7.5 strokes better than the player's handicap index when the round was played, their handicap index is going to be calculated with an additional 1.0 reduction. And how does this work? Essentially, a -1 reduction is applied to each of the last 20 score differentials, which is effectively reduces that golfer's handicap index by 1, and then that reduction goes away as scores are posted. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often out there. I have a question. Will these features be part of the upgraded cost that they ask you if you want at the beginning of each round, or does that come with the standard $45 membership? So Mr. Nathan here is talking about the $45 is the fee for our Carolinas E-Club. So that's our solution for golfers who aren't members of a green grass club, a traditional country club. They can get a handicap index, join the CGA through our Carolinas E-Clubs, and the fee for that's $45 per year. Anything I'm showing you here is included on the app. Hole by hole posting, anything like this is all included. The upgrade you might see in the Gin app, they market what they call there's a GPS feature on the app that's free, that's available to everyone using the app. But there's what they call the enhanced GPS that gives you a couple extra things that I'm not too familiar with. That costs like $49 a year. That's all separate from my world. That's all done. The CGA has nothing to do with that. That's all done through Gin, the Gin app itself. Um, but that's what's I think you're referring to. But everything I'm talking about is any feature in the Gin app is all standard. Very good. All right, on to the basic calculation. So a handicap index is designed to represent your ability when you are playing well, which is why you should feel good whenever you play to your handicap or better. Um, Once you have 20 scores in your scoring record, the handicap index is simply calculated by taking an average of the best 8 score differentials, and you'll see those with the blue star either on the website or your app. Um, and players can expect to shoot and score about 2 to 5 strokes higher in most rounds, and you're going to play to your handicap index actually about only about 20% of the time because it's based on your best 8 scores. Um, so that's the very quick thing. If for most players, it's your best 8 score differentials out of your last 20, average those up. That's your handicap index. Oh, Mr. Who's that? Yeah, Mr. Nate says, I posted 8 rounds this season. I've not seen the 10 to 17 hole option. You have to make sure you're choosing hole by hole to be able to get that option as well. All right. All right. Once you have 20 scores, you're going to get a low handicap index established. So the low handicap index is represents the demonstrated ability of a player over the 365-day period preceding the day from the most recent score in the scoring record. So that's a reference point against which the current handicap index can be compared. So the USGA is starting to look more at this evaluating a golfer's handicap by looking at scores over an entire previous 365 days. Again, the low handicap index is established only once a player has 20 acceptable scores in their record. It's the low handicap index isn't recalculated every day. It's only recalculated whenever you post a score. And it must be displayed in the scoring record, of course. That's what we see on the Gin app. So some of you maybe, we've got probably 17, 18, 20% of golfers have been affected by the soft cap or maybe currently affected by the soft cap or the hard cap. So maybe somebody here is on the cap. Um, So even the best players have tough stretches from time to time, although form changes, players' underlying ability does not change rapidly, which is why, in most cases, does not change rapidly. Sometimes it does, but most cases it does not. So each time your handicap index updates, that new 8 of 20 average is compared to that low handicap index of the past year. So if that low 8 of 20 average gets above 3.0 more than the low handicap index, the soft cap's going to slow that number down by 50%. It's going to slow that handicap index from going up too fast. And if that handicap index gets more than 5 above the low cap, the hard cap's going to prevent that from going up any higher. Your handicap committee can override the caps for circumstances such as injury. Um, I've had a lot of questions lately on the soft cap and hard cap. Why am I on a cap? When does the cap go away? Uh, Anecdotally, it seems like the caps do kind of come into play a little more during the winter time. Scores kind of maybe trend up a little bit in the winter. It gets colder, a little more difficult to play, wet conditions, so forth. There's not a straight example or a straight answer as to when the cap would go off for your handicap index, but here's how it kind of looks. The golfer has a low handicap index of 20, and their handicap index kind of is sneaking up, and then they get to this soft cap zone. Their handicap index gets to 23, 3 more than the low handicap index. That handicap index is going to be slowed. When it gets to 25, can't go up any further than that. But we can see we're in May right here, and this is our low handicap was established back in June. So once we get to June, that low handicap is going to start sneaking up, and the player may come off the cap as that handicap index sneaks up, and depending on how the player scores, or maybe they get better, or maybe they trend worse. It all depends. And some messages for players around the caps. So it's part of the handicap index calculation. The CGA didn't put it there. Your committee didn't put it there. It's just applied automatically. It ensures that a temporary loss of form does not cause a player's handicap index to increase to a level inconsistent with their demonstrated ability. And that's really what our handicap index is a measure of the golfer's demonstrated ability. And the purpose is to provide more provide equity, and ensure a player's chance of playing to their handicap index is consistent with others. Without the caps, players who experience a significant upward movement in a short period of time, on average, have a more likely chance of scoring at or below their handicap index compared to a more stable player. Yeah, I had a call case last fall. And my handicap index is pulled down from this hot streak I had. Huh? Well, yeah, a hot streak means that you can play that well. And the system's going to remember that you can play that well and adjust your handicap index accordingly. And then finally, research suggests that most players who experience a cap will return to their normal demonstrated ability. In many cases, the impact of the cap is only just a few tenths of a stroke and may not even result in a change to their course handicap. All right, we're getting pretty close to the end. Role of the handicap committee. The rules of handicapping include a range of safeguards to ensure that each player's handicap index continues to reflect their demonstrated playing ability. Handicap committees also play a vital role. So if you're a member at a green grass club, you should have a handicap committee to do this. For those E-club members, like Mr. Nathan, the CGA, we act as your handicap committee. And they play a vital role, and they're expected to conduct handicap reviews for all players on a regular basis. Reporting tools are available to assist the handicap committee with identifying players who may need an adjustment to their handicap index. There was a big change into the software just a couple weeks ago that's going to encourage handicap committees to do more, use this. There's a handicap review tool that will be implemented that your club may implement soon. Anyway, but if your handicap index or the handicap index of a fellow player needs to be reviewed, contact that handicap for committee for assistance. Coming back from injury, coming back from a surgery, you may need some handicap committee to step in to give you an accurate handicap index that represents your demonstrated ability. I'll still hang around for questions here. Some quick statistics. Men's average handicap index, when I last looked at it, was around 13.7. And the average women's handicap index was 29.0. Both those numbers are a little bit better than the national averages. So we got some good golfers here in the Carolinas. Yeah, thank you for attending. Hope you all got something out of this. Thank you for spending your time. My email address is right here, jim.douglas with two S's at Carolinas with an S, golf.org. Our main office line is there, 910-673-1000. Our gin support line is 910-687-4040, and the aforementioned email address. North and South Carolina members can access our website, carolinasgolf.org. If you're in South Carolina, you're also a member with the South Carolina Golf Association. Their website is scgolf.org. We're the authorized golf association, the Allied Golf Association with the USGA. But there is the South Carolina Golf.org, South Carolina Golf Association that runs events and so forth. And then women down in South Carolina can also check out WSCGA.org with the Women's South Carolina Golf Association. All right, yeah, and you're all are welcome for everybody. I'll catch up with Nathan and Lynn. Thank you all. Small crowd, but that actually makes it good. Appreciate y'all, everybody's time. Have a great evening. It's going to be weekend soon enough.
Jim, I do have one quick question. I apologize for jumping right in at the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, everyone. Question, yes.
Yeah, so it's in terms of like the max hole score. I just want to make sure I heard that right. So if you sit there, I mean, once you hit that number, are you good to just put that number down and move on to the next hole, or do you actually have to like play out the entire hole?
If you're playing a casual round and you hit that maximum number, you can pick up as long as you're playing partners, don't mind.
Right. I mean, that's where it's like I said, I'm a huge proponent of like, kind of like picking up the pace and like the more, I mean, you have that blow up hole too, to where it's just like, instead of sitting there and, kind of ruining your mental game and just, it's like being able to put that number on and just move on. I mean, makes life, I feel like, so much better for the course, but that's where I wanted to just make sure I was following that rule from that, as opposed to just, like I said, I didn't know like if you put it into the app to where, if you put that max in on the score post that you got going on, to then go, if it kind of messes up the score calculations or not.
No, not really. If you shot ahead of 10 and your max was an 8, if you put in an 8, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
appreciate you again for doing this for us.
Yeah.
Very informational.
Good. Yep. No, yeah. If I've hit a couple out of bounds and picking up that ball.
No, 100%. All right, perfect. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.